Generation Action at UAB. Before I go any further, I want to take a moment to recognize that UAB currently resides on the land of the Muskegee and Creek people who stewarded this land for generations prior to colonization. So Planned Parenthood Generation Action at UAB is a student organization dedicated to reproductive justice advocacy, sexual health education, and community outreach. We've been on campus for 3 years now, and in that time we regularly table to hand out condoms, we host events related to reproductive justice, we collaborate with a number of organizations on campus and in the community. In the past, our most successful campus campaigns have focused on the successful installation of free menstrual hygiene dispensers in all campus restrooms, as well as the ongoing campaign to install free condom dispensers in all UAB residence halls. Last year, on the 46th anniversary of Roe v. Wade, we hosted a theatrical reenactment of the oral re-arguments of Roe v. Wade, and that event is a large part of what sparked today's production. So the People versus the Alabama Legislators is centered around HB 314, or the Human Life Protection Act. This bill was passed into law and signed into law by Governor Kay Ivey in May 2019, and it essentially bans abortion access in all cases across the state, even in cases of rape or incest. And under this bill, doctors who have been found to be providing abortion care can be risked being charged with a felony and imprisoned for up to 99 years for providing health care to their patients. This is the most restrictive bill around abortion that the country had ever seen, so Alabama got a lot of international and national attention around this time. This attention largely condemned the bill, calling it a violation of constitutional and human rights. People across Alabama and across the nation largely agreed, as there was protests in every major city in Alabama. There was constant news coverage of the bill itself, and I attended several of the Senate and House debates of when the bill was being passed in those houses, or those bodies, legislatures, and I saw brave sexual assault survivors go up to the stand, share their abortion stories and testimonies, and then watch senators still vote yes on the ban even after hearing these honest stories from survivors. So, a couple weeks after the ban was passed, I was reading Dr. Angela Davis's autobiography, and in it she shared an account from when she was working with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in 1968. A police officer had murdered an innocent black teenager for just walking across the street, and the grand jury had found him not guilty, which is a story that's not very uncommon still today. In response, the community hosted a people's tribunal where they put this police officer and the police department on trial for the crimes against the community and this slain teenager. It was a way for the community to get a semblance of justice that wasn't delivered to them through the traditional court system and the traditional criminal justice system, as we know that this system is very biased against those from different racial backgrounds or different socioeconomic statuses. So, after reading that account, I was inspired to start brainstorming about this event. We wanted to host an event where we could put the Alabama legislators on trial for their actions in infringing upon the constitutional rights of Alabamians related to the abortion ban, and have the audience serve as a jury. So, standing in front of all of you all, 8 months later, it's very surreal to think this has now become a reality. This would not have been possible without all of the organizations, mentors, and people who helped make this happen. So I want to take a moment to thank Planned Parenthood Southeast, Elridge, Advocates for Youth, Woke Vote. I would also like to thank UAB Theater Department, Blazer Theater Organization, all the different organizations have been supporting us throughout this process. Also, I'd like to thank Dr. Lee Shackleford, Nicole Watkins, Kiara Smith, Gopi Shah, Veronica Srivastava, and of course the Generation Action E-Board, including Makayla Brooke, I combined Kiara and yours name. Makayla Brooke, who helped co-write the script, and also Ari Villanueva, who designed everything related to the media with the playbill, the posters, in this regards to the event. Also, the cast has been working extremely hard for a month and a half to bring the characters you'll see today on the stage to life. Everything in this script and in this play is totally based on real accounts, real people, and is drawn from real abortion stories, real interviews, and nothing in this came just straight out of our brain. This is all real testimonies shared by real people in regards to abortion. And so while you're watching this play, some things might seem outlandish or may seem humorous, but please keep in mind that there may be people who share these views in the audience, and there's definitely people who share these views outside in the world. So that being said, I'd also like to say that this play contains several references to sexual assault, murder, violence, suicide, alcohol. So if at any point if you feel the need to step out, please feel free to do so. The exit's right behind you where you first walked in. Also, I ask you to turn off your cell phones and keep them on silent for the duration of this play. We do have a videographer in the back who will be filming, so please be mindful of him. Please keep in mind that our actors are just actors and that they don't necessarily represent the views that they're portraying on stage. And so the key central point of this play is the audience interaction component. So there are moments in this play where you may find humorous or heartbreaking, so please feel free to respond as you wish. But keep in mind that you will have to decide if the legislators are guilty or not guilty at the end of the play. So mark the ballot that you received in the playbill, and we will be collecting the ballots towards the end, and they will be counted on stage. So you will receive the verdict at the end of the play. Also, this is our third performance, our last show of the play, as for now at least. And every time I've been slightly editing my speech, messing it up a little bit each time, getting unusually nervous before I come on stage to speak. And I think that's because this has been an 8-month process of working on the script, having the idea, working with Makayla to get everything right, holding auditions for the actors, meeting the actors, getting rehearsals done. And so it's very surreal to see this all come to life and happen on stage and see your reactions to it real time. So it's very difficult to find the words that can kind of sum up that process. So I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight. Please, when the bailiff walks in with the judge, please do stand as you have to respect our honorable Judge Thompson. Please stand if you're able when the clerk asks you all to be sworn in. And yeah, please enjoy the show. We will be holding a quick 15-minute question and answer session at the end of the play if you have any questions, and afterwards the cast will be out to mingle with the audience as well. So yeah, thank you very much.
All rise for the Honorable Judge Stephen Thompson presiding.
Will the jury please stand and raise your right hand? Do each of you swear that you will fairly try the case before this court and that you will return a true verdict according to the evidence and instructions of the court? Please say, I do.
I do.
You may be seated.
Ready to present their case? Ready for the defense, Your Honor.
Ready for the prosecution, Your Honor.
Prosecution may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. Your Honor, and esteemed people of the jury, my name is Stephanie Weddington, and I am here today to represent the people of Alabama. The Human Life Protection Act, or HB 314, was signed into law by Governor Kay Ivey on the date of May 15, 2019. This act, introduced by Representative Terry Collins and supported by 100 total legislators within the State House of Representatives and Senate, aims to place a total ban on abortion within the state of Alabama. It even includes cases of rape and incest. Doctors who are found to be providing abortion care to their patients risk being charged with a felony and imprisoned for up to 99 years. People of the jury, the defendants have been charged with violating the Alabamians' constitutional rights to liberty and privacy, threatening their health and well-being, and forcing them to carry pregnancies to term against their will. This act violates the precedent set by the Supreme Court in Roe v. Wade in 1973 and is unconstitutional under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, as it violates Alabamians' substantive due process rights to liberty and privacy. The testimonies and evidence we will present to you today will show the liability of the Alabama lawmakers in breaching the law written into the Constitution of the United States of America. Thank you.
Defense may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, Your Honor, and esteemed people of the jury, my name is Ernest Flowers, and I am here today to represent the Alabama Legislators. Every day, dozens of little innocent babies are slaughtered before they even have the chance to take their first breath. Every year, that makes thousands of tiny voices that will never get to chant the holy words, Roll Tide, or Eagle. It was this tragic realization that prompted Representative Collins to create the life-saving bill that Ms. Weddington and the plaintiff are attempting to destroy. Our legislators are sworn to look out for the well-being of the Alabama people under the Constitution, and were elected into office to do so. This case is therefore a literal matter of life and death, people of the jury. Today, I will be demonstrating the effectiveness of the Human Life Protection Act and how it will benefit the people of Alabama. At the end of the trial, it will be abundantly clear that the fine legislators we have elected to serve our great state are not guilty. Thank you.
Prosecution may call its first witness.
The people call Elizabeth Newble to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you shall give in the case now before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your first and last name and pronouns for the court.
Elizabeth Newbill, pronouns she, they.
You may be seated.
Ms. Newble, from your position as a Planned Parenthood field organizer, you are here today to explain the negative effects of HB 314 on the people, correct?
Yes, I am.
Can you briefly explain HB 314, or the Human Life Protection Act, to the jury, please?
This bill is intended to ban abortion access across our entire state, and it punishes doctors for providing healthcare services to their patients. It sets a dangerous precedent. If a doctor can go to jail for 99 years for performing a procedure, how likely will they be able to perform that procedure in an emergency? Would you be comfortable with that as a patient, knowing your doctor could be standing there debating whether or not to perform a potentially life-saving procedure?
With such stringent restrictions on physicians, how will this ban affect healthcare access for your average Alabamian?
Alabama has a serious physician shortage, combined with high rates of infant and maternal mortality, cervical cancer mortality, which is one of the most preventable cancers, high rates of teen births and other unintended pregnancies, and a lack of access to health care in our predominantly rural state. In 1980, 45 of our 54 rural counties had access to obstetrical services. Today, only 16 of them do so, which means that more people will have to drive an hour or more to receive prenatal care or to give birth. So if we begin arresting more physicians, it'll only add on to the additional health risk for your average Alabamian.
So it sounds like this bill will just further weaken our healthcare infrastructure here in Alabama.
Yes, this bill is just a huge waste of money. In the last 5 years, the state has paid millions in attorney's fees in the defense of unconstitutional legislation. In 2015, Governor Bentley tried to get the Planned Parenthood program kicked off of Medicaid, which was overturned by federal courts. In 2016, the state paid $1.7 million in legal fees after a plaintiff successfully challenged an Alabama law that required abortion doctors to have hospital admitting privileges. Since then, 2 more unconstitutional bills related to abortion have since been overturned by federal courts. Guess who has to pay for that? Alabama taxpayers. For Alabama lawmakers, we're just a pawn in their political game.
Thank you. Is there anything else you would like to present to the jury?
Yes. My point is that when abortion is not an option, people and babies suffer. Places with higher abortion restrictions have worse health outcomes for both birth givers and children than other states, which include high rates of infant and maternal mortality. This unjustly impacts young people, people of color, transgender and gender nonconforming folks, people with disabilities, people in rural areas, and people who are undocumented. People are going to have abortions even with this ban. For those with the lesser means, it'll always be unsafe and inaccessible. But for those with the means, it doesn't matter that Alabama has banned it. They'll find another state, they'll find another country, they'll fly off, they'll have their abortions hidden, and nobody will know the wiser. Banning abortion altogether places the lives of marginalized communities in jeopardy.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for testifying today. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Would the defense like to cross the witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
The defense may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Newell, what would you say qualifies you to speak on this legislation and the health of the people of Alabama?
As I have said before, I have worked for Planned Parenthood Southeast for several years now. It is my job to understand any legislation or acts that goes against the liberties guaranteed by the Constitution of the United States of America. So I would say that I am very qualified to speak out against HB 314.
Now, you say that people and babies will suffer if abortion is not an option. Could you expand on this statement and why you do not consider adoption to be a viable option?
Going through pregnancy and giving birth can be both dangerous and expensive. It is dangerous for white birth givers, but often a death sentence for many Black women and gender nonconforming folks. Black and indigenous birth givers are 2 to 3 times more likely to die during childbirth. On top of health risks, not everyone can afford to take time off of work, to go to doctor's appointments, can pay for all the costs associated with pregnancy, or can afford health insurance. Unlike abortion, adoption is not an alternative to being pregnant. It is an alternative to parenting.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
The witness is excused. The prosecution may call the next witness.
The people call for the testimony of a witness we shall call Sam. But let me clarify that this is not the witness's real name and that they have agreed to testify on condition of their anonymity.
Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you shall give in the case now before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated.
Sam, you are here with us today to give testimony of your first-hand experience with abortion, correct?
Yes, just as a warning to those listening, my story contains references to alcohol and sexual assault.
Thank you for the heads up. Please proceed whenever you are ready.
My story is hard to hear, harder to tell. One thing I know for certain is that I would not be here today if it wasn't for Planned Parenthood and the compassionate staff. It was January 2017 when some friends and I went out for Tequila Tuesday. We were hammered because tequila was flowing, my group kept buying, and I kept drinking. Later that night, a former friend, a co-worker, decided that he would take me to my bedroom and rape me while I was inebriated. I woke up the next day bleeding and confused. I vividly remember my mind and body realizing what had happened to me before I did. Shocked and confused, I call my best friend and she explains what he did to me. I am a zombie for 3 days. No showering, no changing clothes, no thinking, just surviving. She begged me to go to the police to get checked out by the hospital, but I just wanted it to go away. She told me that she knew a clinic that I could go to downtown. I moved through life for the next month and a half, feeling sick to my stomach. By early March, I knew something was off. Not just my attacker calling me, despite me telling him that I never wanted to see him again. My period hadn't come for 2 months. And so I took a pregnancy test, and then another, and another. This nightmare couldn't be real, but it was. Positive. I had to bite my shower curtain to keep from screaming as I crumbled onto my bathroom floor. I knew that if I couldn't end this pregnancy, it would end me. I could never bring his child into this world. I couldn't. With abortion being so stigmatized, I didn't think anyone would understand. So I did the only thing I knew to do. I called my rapist and told him what happened. Luckily, I remembered my best friend's saving words at the clinic downtown. I told him that I needed Planned Parenthood. He told me that he needed to think about it. I told him I didn't get a say so when he took what he wanted from me, and now he doesn't get a say in the consequences of his actions. So he took me to my appointments. Finally, the day came, and after he dropped me off, I told him to never contact me again for putting me through that. Afterwards, I tried to live life as normal, but he began to stalk me. He called and messaged me incessantly. He came to my home and my job. I eventually had to be admitted to a partial hospitalization program for PTSD and major depressive disorder. I am recovering every day, and I will forever be grateful to Planned Parenthood for the opportunity to live again.
Thank you for sharing your story with us, Sam. We appreciate your honesty and your bravery. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Would the defense like to cross the witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
The defense may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sam, I gotta say, I'm skeptical of your testimony. Research shows that victims of rape and incest who choose to get an abortion are likely to suffer more. Many sexual assault victims see giving birth as a selfless, loving act that helps bring about healing from the horrific experience of the rape itself. Why did you decide to get an abortion instead of giving birth to a beautiful child?
Excuse me?
Would you like me to repeat the question?
No. I shared my story with you in hopes that you would empathize with me and those in my similar situation. I guess I shouldn't have had my hopes so high. I got an abortion because it was the best decision for me and my life, and it was my decision and mine alone.
I have nothing further for the witness, Your Honor.
The witness is excused. Prosecution may call its next witness.
The people call Dr. George Tiller.
Nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your first and last name and pronouns for the court.
George Tiller. I pronouns are he, him, his.
You may be seated.
Dr. Tiller, for the record, what is it that you specialize in?
I've been a practicing OBGYN for 39 years.
For the benefit of anyone who may not know, what exactly is an OBGYN?
The OBGYN is a handy abbreviation that stands for obstetrics and gynecology. So to put it simply, I'm a medical professional who specializes in reproductive health care.
A practicing OBGYN for 39 years. Would it be fair to say, Dr. Tiller, that you have more first-hand knowledge about reproductive health and abortion care than the average person with a non-medical background?
Yes, ma'am, that'd be correct. I've been now, excuse me, let me finish.
Counsel is reaching with the witness.
I've been abortion for 4 years.
Order in the court. Counsel, control your witness, or I have to hold him in contempt.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Prosecution may proceed.
Dr. Tiller, you've been an abortion provider for many years. What is it that draws you to this practice, and what motivates you to advocate for abortion access?
As a physician, I care deeply about my patient. I know how critical abortion care is. Abortion care is the only area of medicine where the federal government puts politics and ideology before the patient-provider relationship, with the intent to criminalize doctors and manipulate patients' healthcare decisions. As a physician, I use my expertise and experience caring for my patients to advocate for the right to access abortion care. The majority of my patients do not have the resources in order to combat these unconstitutional laws themselves. Therefore, it is my responsibility to stand and fight on their behalf.
What is the medical community's consensus on abortion?
The vast majority of the medical and public health community recognize abortion as health care. It is not dangerous. It is not irresponsible. It is not murder.
The defense is arguing that abortion damages people's health and well-being. Do you agree with this statement?
These are myths and stigmas, and the most dangerous thing about abortion are these myths and stigmas. You see, abortion is safer than a colonoscopy. It's much safer than giving birth. In fact, it's also rather common. 1 in 4 women will have an abortion in their lifetime. These stigmas just make it hard for the everyday individual to recognize the overwhelming medical consensus that abortion is health care. It should be freely accessible to all. The relationship between a pregnant person and their doctor requires both trust and privacy. Therefore, I would say that there is no room for legislators in the exam room and no space for politics and medical decisions.
What impact would you foresee this abortion ban to have on the health of Alabamians?
Extensive research has shown that legally banning abortions will have little effect on the overall rate of abortions. People will still get abortions, but they'll be forced to get them in unsafe conditions that can lead to medical complications, possibly even death. Wealthier folks will still be able to access care out of state, but it's the low-income people that will be affected, that will be forced into these back alley procedures. I fear greatly for the health of our community if this ban is not revoked.
Thank you for your time and your work, Dr. Tiller. No further questions, Your Honor.
Would the defense like to cross the witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. So you claim this procedure is simple, not dangerous to an individual's health, Dr. Tiller?
Yes, sir, that'd be correct.
Not even to their mental health, Dr. Tiller?
95% of people who get an abortion do not regret their decision. Abortions do not cause depression or anxiety, but those who have depression or anxiety may be more likely to get an abortion. This could be a result of their environment or a myriad of other circumstances, but not a result of the procedure itself.
Yes or no, Dr. Tiller?
Well, it's a very complicated answer.
Why are abortion rates still so high today, with contraceptives, sexual health education being so accessible?
Well, Mr. Flowers' rates have actually been declining for many years now. This is because of a decrease in births and pregnancies overall, which itself is due to an increase in contraceptive access. You see, medically accurate and comprehensive sex education is still hard to find in Alabama, especially for our young folks. But regardless, our goal should not be to eliminate abortion. There will always be need for abortion care, and our goal should be to protect it, not further stigmatize it.
What about the well-documented side effects of abortion? The increased risks of breast cancer, cervical cancer, perforation of the uterus, depression, sleep disturbances, eating disorders, substance abuse, child abuse or neglect, suicide?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is badgering the witness.
Sustained. Defense, restate your question.
What about the well-documented side effects of abortion?
These are all myths. And I have to believe that you know that. Research has shown time and time again that abortion is a perfectly safe medical procedure with risks similar to any other perfectly safe medical procedure. It will not increase one's rates of any kind of cancers and will rarely have any long-lasting effects. Now, a lot of the psychological issues that you referenced earlier, such as depression and sleep disturbances.
Sleep disturbances, Dr. Tiller.
Could be a result of societal stigmas which prevent patients from having honest conversations about their experiences. It seems like a game to you. Do you realize how these stigmas have painted targets on the backs of doctors and ruined people's lives? You understand that I've had colleagues who have been killed, actually murdered for their work. My wife worries if I'm even going to make it through this year. Why? Because I have been shot 5 times and my clinic has been firebombed. Now, tell me, the woman who shot me, do you think she consulted my wife or considered how such a violent death would affect my children? Do you think that she cared about our lives? No, I don't think you do. But regardless, this case is not about me, it is about healthcare. Now, in 1998, in your very own Birmingham, Alabama, across the street from that little Mediterranean restaurant that all the kids love, what is it? Al's, yes. Across the street from Al's, an abortion clinic was bombed by an anti-choice activist, or extremist, as we should call them. That person killed a police officer and wounded a nurse, a woman who just wanted to provide health care. Now tell me, Mr. Flowers, is this what all this violence has been for? For abortion? For health care? Well, sir, tell me why.
I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Of course you don't.
Witness excused. Prosecutor, have any other witnesses?
A couple more, Your Honor. The people call for the testimony of Sarah Williams.
Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you shall give in the case now before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated.
Ms. Williams, thank you for agreeing to come and speak to us today. Whenever you're ready, please share your testimony with the jury.
In the fall of 2016, I was in my 3rd year at the University of South Alabama. One day this semester, I was representing a mental health advocacy organization at a health fair on campus. Planned Parenthood Southeast was tabling at the booth next to mine. This is where I met the field organizer for the first time. I wanted to learn more about what I could do to help Planned Parenthood, so I put my information down on their sign-up sheet and soon began receiving updates about local volunteer opportunities. Soon after this, I discovered Generation Action and dove headfirst into their student advocacy work.
What were some of the things you learned in your time with Generation Action?
I learned a lot in a very short amount of time about the many barriers one faces when trying to access reproductive health care here in Alabama. I was lucky enough not to know any of these experiences firsthand until early July of 2017 when I found out that I was pregnant. Neither my boyfriend nor I wanted to have a child, and I knew from my volunteer work that the abortion services at the Mobile clinic weren't consistently available. So I immediately began researching other options. I called American Family Planning and set up an appointment for 6:15 a.m. the following morning at their Pensacola, Florida location. Even if the abortion services at the Mobile clinic were consistently available, I probably would have chosen to go to the Pensacola, Florida location anyway in order to avoid Alabama's 48-hour waiting period. The drive was a little over an hour, so my boyfriend and I, we left at 4:45 a.m. and used Google Maps to navigate our way there. When we arrived, protester activity was high. There were 2 security officers at the entrance, and one of them informed me that only patients were allowed inside, no cell phones or companions. So my boyfriend drove my car to a nearby McDonald's while I headed in alone.
Is there anything you did to prepare for this appointment?
The night prior to my appointment, I read countless stories from other abortion patients online. In many of them, the patient mentioned that the clinic was more full than they expected. With this in mind, I thought I was more prepared to witness the same thing, but it still hit me very hard. If I remember correctly, the take-in period ended at 7 a.m. By this time, every single seat in both of the waiting areas was filled by a patient. I paid $515, which my boyfriend had to withdraw from his student loan funds for a surgical abortion with twilight sedation. The price included an out-of-state discount.
Thank you for sharing your story with us. How was life after your abortion?
After my abortion, life continued on like normal, which is all I was hoping for. I was confident in my decision, I had a support partner, and I was able to handle it privately. It wasn't until several months after that I had a strong emotional response, but even that didn't stem from the actual procedure. Through my work with Generation Action, I discovered or found out about the National Day of Appreciation for Abortion Providers, and that this day came about in response to the first known murder of an abortion provider by the name of Dr. David Gunn, who was murdered in Pensacola, Florida. I also learned that the following year, after Dr. Gunn's murder, another abortion provider by the name of John Britton was murdered outside of a clinic in Pensacola, Florida. This clinic was the same one that I went to, but in 1994, it was called the Lady Center.
How did you cope with this information?
I was at home alone when I came across this information online. There was this knot in my stomach, and I didn't know if I needed to scream or throw up. I settled for calling my boyfriend, but he didn't pick up. I started searching online frantically to try and find a talk line or hotline I could talk to. Amazingly, I found something called the Exhale Pro Voice After Abortion Talk Line. The volunteer I spoke with was calm and compassionate and everything I needed that night. I knew immediately that more people needed to be aware of this service, so at the earliest opportunity, I passed along all the information I had about Exhale to our field organizer. A couple weeks later, after returning from a conference, she informed me that every single patient at the Mobile clinic would now receive a handout with the talk line number on it. At the time, this was the one thing that I felt had the most tangible impact on people like me. And all it took was me sharing my honest experience.
Thank you, Ms. Williams, for using your story to advocate for change. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Would the defense like to cross the witness?
No, Your Honor.
The witness is excused. Prosecution may call its next witness.
People call for the testimony of John Richards.
Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you shall give in the case now before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your first and last name and pronounce for the court.
John Richards, he, him, his.
You may be seated.
Mr. Richards, you are here today to give your first-hand testimony of your experience with abortion, correct?
Yes.
Proceed whenever you're ready.
I was 18. I was supposed to go to football practice, but I got a call from my partner at the time instead. As weird as it may sound, I could immediately tell that something was wrong, just based on her voice. So I drew over, and she and her mother were already waiting for me in the living room. I remember us just sitting there, quietly, awkwardly, no one really knowing what to say, until her mother broke the silence. She said she had a similar situation at our age, but that unlike her, we both had a lot more options. We had our futures to consider. After a while, my partner and I discussed it, by which I mean we sat in her room, not really knowing what to do. So I got up and I said I would support whatever decision she made. I left. I'm not proud of how I handled the situation. A week or so later, I got another call from her. So I drove over as fast as I could, and she explained to me through tears that she went to have him taken care of. And I comforted her as best I could. I later came to understand that she had gone to a Planned Parenthood clinic to receive an abortion. We haven't discussed it much since.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. From your personal experience, what impact would you say abortion has had on your life?
It let me have a life. I got to go to college, and so did she. We didn't have to stop our whole lives just to try to raise a family.
Thank you for testifying today. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
The defense like to cross the witness.
Yes, Your Honor.
The defense may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Richards, at any point in time, did you attempt to influence your partner's decision?
No, not at all. All I did was support whatever decision she made.
I ask because statistically, the majority of women who get an abortion are forced into it by a partner who doesn't want the baby. So I ask you again, did you, at any point, attempt to convince her into getting an abortion?
No! I didn't pressure her into getting anything at all. In fact, it was entirely her idea. All I did was support her.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
The witness is excused. Does the prosecution have any other witnesses?
The people rest their case, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready to present its case?
Yes, Your Honor.
The defense may call its first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. We call for the testimony of Jill Johnson.
Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you shall give in the case now before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your first and last name and pronounce for the court.
Jill Johnson, I pronounce she, her, her.
You may be seated.
Ms. Johnson, could you give us all a little background on what it is you do?
Well, I work at a pregnancy resource center. We provide care and resources to pregnant women ranging from sonograms to parenting classes to free diapers. though we are nothing like Planned Parenthood because we don't only tell women to get abortions.
Objection, Your Honor. Planned Parenthood is a well-established national organization that provides a variety of services related to comprehensive reproductive health care.
Sustained. Ms. Johnson, just say what it is you do.
Yes, Your Honor, my apologies. I am what you would call a pregnancy resource center technician.
And when pregnant women enter your clinic, what services do you offer them?
Well, we asked if we could be of any help by providing supplies or parenting classes. But usually women that come into the clinic have questions about morning sickness or any other pregnancy-related issues they may have been experiencing. And we try to answer all their questions to the best of our ability.
Now, what about women who enter your clinic who are thinking about potentially getting an abortion?
Well, we ask what their situation is and why they're thinking about getting an abortion. We try to encourage women to think about their beautiful baby's life and to make the decision that be best for the baby's future. You know, we tell them these honest dangers about abortion, that it can cause breast cancer and it can make a woman infertile. But see, in cases like those, we are sure to offer alternatives like adoption.
What is your stance on the Alabama abortion ban?
Yes. Well, I see pregnant women who are thinking about getting an abortion on a weekly basis. But it's obvious that they're just scared and have been brainwashed by the media into thinking that abortion may be the best option for them. Well, I'd say by the time that we're done talking, 90% of them have changed their minds. They begin to understand the truth about abortion, that it is murder and it is dangerous for their bodies. That's why I am so glad that the ban has been passed, because I know it will save countless lives and make so many happy families.
Now, what do you say to the prosecution's claim that a fetus is not really a human being?
Well, actually, Flowers, fetus is Latin for little one. Just because abortion is legal does not make it right. Slavery in the United States, here in the United States, used to be legal, but it all ended after people started speaking up about how wrong it was. Oh. And see, that's why I am so passionate about my job, because we are speaking out against these unjust killings of these unborn human beings.
Do you think abortion rates could be reduced if, say, more contraceptives, like birth control or condoms, were handed out instead?
Well, actually, no. While contraceptives do reduce the chances of pregnancy, the actual use of contraceptives only increase risky sexual behavior overall. See, we as a society need to work to change society's attitudes towards sex and reconnect sex with its proper context of marriage and family. But contraception only weakens that link between a couple's sexual activity and any responsibility to make a lifelong commitment or to raise a family together. Pregnancy is no longer just seen as a natural consequence of sex, but yet just a negative side effect.
Thank you for your testimony and your work, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Prosecution, trying to cross the witness.
Yes, Your Honor.
Prosecution may proceed.
Ms. Johnson, if I may ask, what exactly is your medical background?
Well, I have been working at the clinic for 5 years now.
What does your medical training consist of? Are you a physician or a nurse?
Well, I am qualified to perform ultrasounds and STI testing, but no, I'm not a nurse or a physician.
I see. You said you tell your patients that abortion causes breast cancer and can result in infertility. What are your sources for this information? I ask because overwhelming amounts of research and scientific organizations like the National Cancer Institute, American College of Gynecologists and Obstetricians, and others have all said otherwise. Abortion does not cause breast cancer and it does not result in infertility. Why are you sharing medically inaccurate information to your patients?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is testifying.
Sustained. Counsel, restate your question.
Why are you sharing medically inaccurate information to your patients?
I don't trust what the prosecution is saying. I don't believe that to be true. And Ms. Wedding, I love my patients, and I would never lie to them about information.
I'm sure them, Ms. Johnson. However, is it not irresponsible to share medically inaccurate information as fact to people in vulnerable positions?
Oh no, our information is medically accurate. Abortion is a dangerous procedure and can follow a woman for the rest of her life.
Again, what is your source for this information? Can you not reference one reputable source?
Not everything is science. See, sometimes you just have to do what you know to be right in your heart and soul.
Ms. Johnson, the prosecution believes it is very important that all medical advice be scientifically sound. It concerns me that you, as a technician at a pregnancy resource center, do not agree. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
The witness is excused. The judge may call the next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. We call for the testimony of Pastor Chris Dawson.
Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you shall give in the case now before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and pronouns.
Chris Dawson, pronouns. Man of God.
You may be seated.
Pastor Dawson, as a prominent local pastor, what is your opinion on abortion and how it affects our community?
Any woman who gets an abortion is committing murder. The Bible says life begins at conception. This procedure goes directly against God's will. I think when God creates life, it's not our place to extinguish that miracle of life that's inside a mother's womb.
You shared some strong statements on abortions, those who get them. But what about organizations like Planned Parenthood that provide abortions?
Organizations like Planned Parenthood, they corrupt our women and deceive them by telling them that they're helping them, when in fact they kill our children and permanently ruin their wombs. In light of all that the Word of God has told us about the image of God marked upon each and every one of us, from the time of conception, we welcome anyone genuinely seeking the well-being of women and their babies by advocating for saving the lives of the unborn, but oppose any organization that seeks to harm the mental and spiritual well-being of women by advocating for abortion.
What is your opinion on HB 314 and our state's decision to protect the lives of the unborn?
I have never been prouder to be from the great state of Alabama than when I heard that this bill was passed. I am grateful for the brave legislators working so hard every day to protect the lives of the most vulnerable. I pray that this bill makes it all the way up to the Supreme Court and makes it so that abortion is illegal across the whole country.
Thank you for your testimony, Pastor Dawson. I have no further questions.
The prosecution would like to cross the witness.
Yes, Your Honor, we have some questions for the witness.
Prosecution may proceed.
Pastor Dawson, you say that Planned Parenthood deliberately deceives women and ruins their bodies. Do you have any substantial evidence supporting these claims?
When a life is formed, it's a miracle. And that is from a creator who I believe has a plan. And when we thwart or put our will in the way of his plan, that is what I have a problem with. The Bible does not support the killing of our unborn neighbors. We're supposed to love our neighbors. And abortion takes them from this life unjustly. Women are deceived by evil organizations and medical misinformation telling them that abortion does not corrupt their wombs. This is a flat-out lie.
I see, but it could be argued that the Alabama legislators are placing their will in the middle of God's plan. By taking away the right to choose, the Alabama legislators are placing themselves in the place of God. You say that we are supposed to love our neighbors, and I agree, but what about women who become pregnant as a traumatic incident of rape or incest? Are they not our neighbors? How does this ban show love and support to them?
All right, sweetheart. Rape and abortion share this in common. They're both violent acts of assault against an innocent victim. Aborting a child conceived through rape only further extends this violent pattern of victimhood. One cannot, and pro-lifers do not, love the child without first loving the mother. It's unfortunate. It really is. It's unfortunate that these women end up in these situations, but the church is here with open arms to support those who do.
Will the church also provide mental health care as survivors work through their pain? Or what about lawyers to work out custody battles with their rapist in court? Or how about social workers to find that child a good home if they do decide to give it up for adoption?
Well, we can help them find such resources, but we cannot pay for them. It's up to the women and their partners to provide such funding.
Their partner? Do you mean their rapist?
If you want to call it that. Look, I think we're losing sight of what really matters here.
Clearly.
The most important thing that we have to remember is that abortion is against the will of God. We cannot forget that. Abortion is sinful, and it will destruct every woman and every family who brings it into their lives.
The defense rests its entire case on the testimonies of witnesses who rely solely on misinformation and religion to boost their arguments. Pastor Dawson, do you have any factual evidence that is not related to any religious statement?
Our Lord...
No, I did not think you did. No further questions, Your Honor.
Who is his excuse? Does the defense have any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Lila Armstrong to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you shall give in the case now before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your first and last name and pronouns for the court.
Lila Armstrong, and I am a woman. Of course I use she, her, hers.
You may be seated.
Ms. Armstrong, how would you respond to the prosecution's claim that the Human Life Protection Act violates women's rights?
Well, I would say that's not true at all. Women support the pro-life movement much more than men do. Who knows, maybe they recognize that abortion often serves the selfish wants of men rather than the true needs of women.
So you're saying that the bill actually advocates for and protects women?
Yes, yes. Women and children are the ones who benefit the most from this ban. It protects women, so there is no way a man can tell them what to do with their pregnancy. It has been proven time and time again that a man is more likely to push a woman to get an abortion that she doesn't want rather than to force her to not have an abortion.
What would you say then to the prosecution's claim that banning abortion outright will somehow increase the number of unsafe abortions?
All of that is just totally false. The coat hanger abortion is a total myth. There is no strong evidence to suggest the performance of a single coat hanger abortion. Most illegal abortions are performed by doctors, so they're much safer than one might think. Pro-lifers recognize that we can't force women to choose life for their babies, so these illegal abortions are still an option for women who want to go that route. But we try to educate as many women as possible of the true dangers of abortion, so they don't choose it when the time comes.
Ms. Armstrong, out of all the issues in the world today, what draws you to advocate for the rights of the unborn?
Okay. So it might help to compare the scope of abortion to the scope of other evils. Since the legalization of abortion in 1973, over 55 million unborn Americans have been aborted. That is 34 times the number of war deaths, which is only 1.6 million Americans. In 2011, 14,612 murders and 83,425 rapes were reported to the FBI. So abortion is 83 times more common than murder and 15 times more common than rape. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, some 6.7 million households will go hungry at some point during the year. While hunger is a terrible, terrible problem, it cannot compare to the injustice of being killed. Few Americans die of starvation while millions are aborted.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Armstrong. I have no further questions.
The prosecution would like to cross the witness.
Yes, Your Honor.
Prosecution may proceed.
Ms. Armstrong, you have stated multiple times that more women tend to be anti-choice than men.
Yes.
What are your sources for this information?
So I have seen this in my own experience and have heard many stories from other pro-life activists. Also, this information can easily be found through groups like the Center for Medical Progress. They do incredible work at exposing the real evils that Planned Parenthood gets up to.
See, you mentioned your support for the Center for Medical Progress and how they work to expose Planned Parenthood. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Oh, you do not have to tell me twice. Okay, so anyway, these guys from the center went undercover and discovered that Planned Parenthood, yes, Planned Parenthood is selling aborted baby parts to medical companies for profit. Planned Parenthood claims to care about abortion and women's rights when all they really care about is money.
I see, but if I'm not mistaken, didn't a federal jury find the Center for Medical Progress guilty of breaking multiple state and federal laws in November of 2019? The jury awarded Planned Parenthood $2 million in damages after they found the Center for Medical Progress guilty of fraud, trespassing, and illegal secret recording in an effort to smear Planned Parenthood.
Objection! Objection!
Overruled. Prosecution may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, Ms. Armstrong?
Our culture is so accustomed to the violence of abortion that they often see the center as the criminals instead of rightly recognizing the evil that abortion is and demanding that such evil be treated as a crime. Women do not want this instrument of evil anywhere near their wombs.
Ms. Armstrong, you claim that this bill gives women a voice that they did not have before. How can you say this when the majority of legislators who supported this bill were cisgender men? Also, we know that only 20% of Alabamians supported this bill with all of the restrictions we see on it today. I'm a bit confused as to where you're getting this overwhelming support.
You do not seem to understand. Women do not want abortions.
Ms. Armstrong, I have presented multiple pieces of factual evidence stating that women do indeed want access to abortions. You have been unable to provide anything legitimate, relying solely on misinformation to further your agenda. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Witness is excused. Does the defense have any other witnesses?
We call for Representative Terry Collins to come to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you shall give in the case now before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your first and last name and pronounce for the court.
Terry Collins, my pronouns are she, her, hers.
You may be seated.
Representative Collins, when were you elected to the Alabama State House of Representatives, and what district do you serve?
I was elected in 2010, and I represent House District 8, which is Morgan County.
Now, you were the first legislator to introduce the Human Life Protection Act, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
What motivated you to create and propose this bill?
After much discussion, prayer, and thought as a caucus, we decided that we wanted to propose one pro-life bill that session, and we would try to make that one count. I believe a fetus is a child. I don't think that I have the right to take the life of a child. I have a very strong faith. Time I spend with my God and my Lord, that strengthens me. And being in scripture gives me wisdom and helps me, I'm not saying right or wrong, but helps me see what I believe to be true. Standing up for the rights of the unborn and passing this bill, God has helped me pass other bills that I have proposed in the legislature.
Thank you so much for your advocacy for the unborn and your testimony, Representative Collins.
My pleasure, Mr. Flowers.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Prosecution like to cross the witness.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Representative Collins, you talked a little bit about your motivation. What was the motivation to make this the strictest abortion ban in the country? Why were exceptions for rape and incest not included?
The biggest attack we always get is, what? You're not going to include rape and incest? The reason we didn't include any exceptions or anything was to focus on the idea, the decision, and the actual language that is that child in the womb a person. If that amendment was to get on the bill, then I would have killed the bill, because then it wouldn't go to the Supreme Court. It would contradict itself. And so that is why we tried to keep it clean and why we fought so hard to make sure that happened.
So you were saying that exceptions for rape and incest were not included because you wanted this bill to reach the Supreme Court?
I know. I've answered many emails from people who have poured out their hearts with real stories that were true. My goal with this bill is not to hurt them in any way. My goal with this bill, and I think all of our goals, is to have Roe v. Wade turned over and that decision sent back to the states so that we can come up with our laws that address and include amendments and things that address those issues.
People of the jury, you heard Representative Collins' words for yourself. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Witness excused. Does the defense rest its case?
Defense rests its case in chief.
People of the jury, I'm now going to read to you the law that you must follow in deciding this case. To prove the crime charged against the defendant, the prosecution must prove to you three things. First, the Alabama legislators who support the Human Life Protection Act violated Alabamians' constitutional right to liberty and privacy under the 14th Amendment. Second, that they violated the precedent set by a Supreme Court case, Roe v. Wade. Third, that they threatened the health and the well-being of Alabamians. If you believe the prosecution proved all three of these things beyond a reasonable doubt, then you must find the defendant guilty. But if you believe that the prosecution did not prove any one of these things beyond a reasonable doubt, then you must find the defendant not guilty. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is not proof beyond all possible doubt. It means you must consider all the evidence. You must be very sure about the decision you make. Are both sides ready for their closing statements?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. The witnesses called to the stand today have overwhelmingly shown us that abortion is a medically dangerous and immoral procedure that murders millions of innocent children every year. We have shown undeniable proof that life begins at conception. We have established that the Alabama legislators who supported the Human Life Protection Act are not guilty of anything the prosecution is trying to charge them with. We must take steps to protect our state's most vulnerable citizens. Our legislators stand firm in their decision because they know that they were acting out of compassion and care. We can rest easy at night knowing that God supports us in our decision. Thank you.
Prosecution may proceed.
We have heard from a great variety of witnesses today. I ask the jury to keep their testimonies in mind as you deliberate. This ban endangers the public health of our increasingly fragile state, discourages doctors from providing health care to their patients, and only exists because our legislators want to be the ones to overturn Roe v. Wade. Abortion is simply health care, and restricting access will only increase the number of unsafe procedures happening underground and in the back alleys of our very state. This cannot stand. I ask you, the jury, to not hesitate in finding these lawmakers guilty. Alabama's state motto is "We dare to defend our rights." I ask the jury to stand with me today in defending ours. Thank you.
The jury would mark your decision on the ballot you were given upon entrance to the theater. Once marked, pass to the aisle closest to you so it can be collected.
Yes, Your Honor.
The jury has found the defendant guilty. The jury is thanked and excused. Court adjourned.